Shalom, everyone. This is Tamara and Jose, and we're here on an impromptu Q&A because we've just recently posted the Tour to the Tribes calendar, and we've had a lot of questions, so we thought maybe we could address those questions in a short little Q&A. So we're hoping that we can clear up any covenant calendar confusion today. So Jose, the first question that we have is, when does our year begin? So according to this calendar, what day is the first of the year for us?
Okay. Well, according to this calendar, the day after the vernal equinox, the day after, is when the year begins. And so in this case, it would start on the 21st because the vernal equinox is on the 20th.
Okay.
Now, the tekufa, if you look at the definition of a tekufa, it would just be meaning the end of a cycle or the end of the Hebrew year. So that's when the equinox takes place. And then, on the 21st, using the Gregorian calendar of March is when it starts. That would be the first month of the Hebrew year.
Okay, great.
And the first day.
So what I'm understanding, if we look at March and we have those shaded 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, those shaded 5 days are the balancing days. Could you explain that to someone who is asking, what are balancing days?
Well, balancing days are basically extra days that are left past beyond the 360-day Hebrew covenant calendar. So these are remaining days, okay, that are basically part of the 12th Hebrew month, because we can't do anything with it until the beginning of the first month of the Hebrew year. But those 5 days are basically not part of the original covenant calendar because the days were extended to 365 days after the shadow was moved back 10 degrees during the reign of Hezekiah. So since then, calendars throughout civilizations had to readjust, and including, even the Hebrews had to readjust theirs. But there's still a 360-day year in the original calendar, as if it was as it was given back, during the time of the covenant.
Okay, great. So what we know is it originally was set at 360, and then it got adjusted. And the covenant calendar, for any of you who are listening, the Covenant Calendar Club has addressed that, and you can go on to Yahuahs Servant YouTube channel to see some of those teachings there that would show you why we see the calendar was originally at the 360 and eventually will return to the 360 days. Isn't that correct?
That is correct. There are certain prophecies that need to be fulfilled under the true covenant calendar, which would contain 360 days, like the Daniel and Revelation prophecy.
Okay, great. And then, so you see that on the 20th, like you said, that is the day of the Tekufa or the equinox. And we know that by the shadow, right? We see how the shadow, if you use a sundial, which on Yahuah's Servant, you will see a teaching about a sundial, but the sundial, the shadow comes together. And is that, Jose, the time of day where the light is equal on both sides?
Yeah, equinox, nox meaning evening, equal means equal, equilux equal day, equal night, So this is almost when the day and the night are equal, and both in in time, approximately 12 hours. Now, this is a time when the sun, during the vernal equinox, when the sun is heading in the northward position, so heading north, and it crosses the equator. And as soon as it hits the equator, then that sun is directly going to raise exactly on the east, and it's going to set on the west. And that's when the equinox happens. And this is when, if depending where you're at on the earth, you can measure it where the sun's position is by measuring the shadow that it casts off of a gnome or an object, depending on which latitude you're in. But if you're in 0 latitude, you can just take a stick and point it straight forward, and the sun will cross over exactly overhead, and there will basically be no shadow of turning. Now, if you are in the 20th northern latitude, then your sundial needs to be tilted 20 degrees towards the equator, and it'll have the same effect. There will be no shadow on that gnome or stick that it comes out of the sundial face. So that's how you can determine through the natural elements when the equinox happens.
Mm-hmm. Right. So like if we're in the wilderness, if we were in the actual wilderness, then we would know how to look for the equinox. And that is important because as you see the equinox, the next day is day 1. So we are looking at March 21st as the first day of the new year. So if we go from there, I would like to take us all to, we're going to read some scripture. Exodus. I'm sorry, let's go to Leviticus 23 first. Leviticus 23, because our next question is in regards to Passover. When is Passover and when is the first fruits? Mm-hmm. So let's read the scripture first. In Leviticus 23, we'll start with verse 5. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at twilight is Yahuah's Passover. So right there, the instruction says the first month, which we see starts on March 21st this year, on the 14th day of the month. So if we count 14 days from that, March 21st, we are going to have the day of the Passover. So the day of the Passover then would be April 3rd. Am I correct so far?
Yes, that is correct. Uh-huh.
Okay, so let's keep reading. Verse 6, then on the 15th day of the same month, there is the feast of unleavened bread to Yahuwah. For 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. So the 15th day is actually on Sunday the 4th. Mm-hmm. And that would be the first day count of unleavened bread. Now, I did want to back up about on the 15th, that is at twilight, okay, that we do the offering, the Passover is started. We also start eating unleavened bread. But the actual day of unleavened bread is on the 15th day. And we count from there 7 days. So you see on the calendar here, we have 7 days shadowed for the feast, for the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Am I correct so far?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to eat unleavened bread for those 7 days. Then in verse 7, on the first day, you shall have a holy convocation. You shall not do any laborious days. But for 7 days, you shall present an offering by fire to Yahuwah. And on the 7th day is a holy convocation. You shall not do any laborious work. So let's just go over those as far as the calendar goes. So on the first day, which is Sunday the 4th, the first day of unleavened bread, we are to do no servile work, or do not do any laborious work, it says.
Correct.
Okay, and then, so that would be on the April 4th. And then on the 7th day is also a holy convocation, which would be on a Shabbat, April 10th.
Yes, that is correct.
Great. Okay, so let's keep reading in verse 9. Then Yahuwah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, when you enter the land which I am going to give you and reap its harvest, then you shall bring in the sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest. And he shall wave the sheaf before the Yahuwah for you to be accepted. On the day after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. Now on the day when you wave the sheaf, you will offer a male lamb, 1 year old without defect, for a burnt offering. Its grain offering shall then be 2/10 an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, an offering by fire to Yahuwah for a soothing aroma with its libation, 1/4 of a hin of wine. Until this same day, until you have brought in the offering of your Elohim, you shall eat neither bread nor roasted grain nor new growth. It is to be a perpetual statute throughout your generations in your dwelling places. So Jose, could you explain about the wave offering and the first fruit offering? As this is the question that has been asked, if you could explain that and why it is on the day that we are celebrating it.
Yes, so the wave sheaf offering would be the day after Shabbat. Okay. Now, Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread is still considered a, let's just say, two components of one larger feast, right? So, and a cut, you know, per se. So, meaning that since the Shabbat fell on Passover, the very next following day will be the day that we not only have the first day of unleavened bread, but also in this case, just like is recorded in Joshua event, it would also be the following day, which would be the, in this case, the 4th of April, which would be the 15th. So we would have two events happening on that day, the first day of unleavened bread, and we'll also have the wave sheaf as well. And what is really good about this is that we can actually confirm this to be correct if we even were to go to Joshua 10, we can actually verify, because Leviticus 23 is basically a prophecy. This is when they were going to enter the land into Canaan. They were to follow these statutes and commandments. So what happened here is when they enter the land of Canaan, and after the children were circumcised, they celebrated Passover. Okay, and in Joshua 5:10, it
Let's
reads.
Go to that, yeah. Okay, go on, I'm sorry.
So in this case, the wave sheaf would happen the day after the Passover, and this actually confirms it on the case of Joshua. Now the children of Israel camped in Gilgal and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at twilight in the plains of Jericho, and they ate of the produce of the land on the day after Passover. Okay, so when did they eat produce of the land? The day
after Passover.
Passover. So that means that they ate unleavened bread and they ate parched grain, as it keeps reading, on that very same day. So parched grain could have only been eaten once the wave sheaf had to be offered, according to Leviticus 23:14. No grain from the land could have been eaten until the wave sheaf was offered first. So there's an order of things. So we know by verse 11 that the day after Passover is when they ate they ate after the wave sheaf. They ate the corn or the old ear grain of the land. That means that there was old grain in the land of Canaan that they ate. So that's why the manna stopped the following day. Now, if we were to go to Leviticus 23:11, we can see that on the day after the Shabbat, the priest shall wave it. So, according to Joshua 5:11, Passover happened to be exactly on Shabbat, just like it's happening this next year coming up. Okay.
Okay, great, great,
Mhm.
great for pointing that out.
Mhm.
Now the question came about as Yeshua is the first fruits. So if Passover is on Shabbat, and he was risen 3 days later, wouldn't the first fruits be, he would have to be risen to be the first fruits. So some think that first fruit should be on the 11th after the week of Passover. What is your understanding of that? Or
Mhm.
what would you say to that?
Okay, so Yahusha's Passover, okay, included his sacrifice to have happened on a Wednesday. Okay, so we have the first day of unleavened bread that happened on a Thursday, and then the second day of unleavened bread was a Friday, and the third day of unleavened bread was on Shabbat. That's when Yahusha was raised, right before dawn. The following day, as the commandment of Leviticus 23 says, it has to be the day after Shabbat is when the wave sheaf is offered. So the wave sheaf, okay, happened the day after Shabbat, which was 4 days after his crucifixion. So it's different because the weeks are independent from the actual dates of a calendar. So that's why Passover can happen any day of the week, depending on the year. Mhm.
Okay, and the first fruits.
And the first fruits would have, in that case, happened on the day, on the day after Shabbat, the seventh day Shabbat, not the high Shabbat, which would be the day after he was crucified. Mhm.
Okay, so in relation to people saying that if he died, on that Wednesday, he had that time to raise. How can we have Passover
Mhm.
and then have the next day be the wave offering, and without acknowledging those days that he was, we were waiting for his resurrection?
Mhm.
Is that in correlation? I hope I'm asking this question correctly for these people, but because I know there has been a lot of questions in regards to, is first fruits within the week of the unleavened bread, or is it after the week of unleavened bread?
No, yes, great question. So basically, the wave sheaf always has to happen, and this is with Passover included, within that 7-day period. The the wave sheaf has to happen either any day between the first day of unleavened bread all the way to the seventh day of unleavened bread. It can never happen on Passover. It has to happen after. Okay, so after Passover, the very either if Passover is a Shabbat, then the next day is the wave sheaf offering. Now, if Passover happens and 3 days later we have a Shabbat, then the wave shift is the day after the Shabbat. If the Shabbat happens 5 days after Passover, if the Shabbat happens to fall 5 days after the Passover, then the following day would be the wave sheaf offering. So it will always, no matter how you cut it and dice it, it'll always fall within the 7th day of unleavened bread, the wave sheaf offering. It'll never fall outside of that. Okay.
Great. Thank you for clearing that up. Now, if we could just move on, just a little bit more explanation about our calendar. So when does the day of start our Omer count? When is the day to the starting of our Omer count?
That will be the day of the wave sheaf offering, when the produce is taken off the land, the expectation of the harvest, and that's when the produce of the fields are eaten, and so that's when the first blessings and the Omer count starts. 50 from that day, 50 days forward.
Okay, so we are looking first fruits or wave offering, which is the same thing, as April 4th. So April 4th, we will start counting 50 days to Shavuot. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so then we are looking at May 25th? No, 23rd. May 23rd will be Shavuot or Pentecost. Is that correct?
It looks like that would be, it looks like that would be correct, yes.
Yeah. All right, and then from there we move into the fall feast, which of course is Feast of Trumpets, which would be September, I can't see that from here, I'm sorry, September 17th. And then Day of Atonement would be September 26th. And then the Feast of Sukkot would start on October 1st through October 8th.
Yes.
No. All right, Jose, thank you for clearing up these questions for us. And if any of you are watching this and have more questions for us, please send them to Shabbat Fellowship at Torah to the Tribes. And I think addressing these in a short little video sometimes are very helpful. And we, as you have questions, we'd love to hear them. You can email them to us, or you could join our Covenant Calendar Club, which meets on Friday night and Saturday morning. And you can if you're not connected in their emails or receiving their emails, you can go to torahtothetribes.com and go to the connect page and scroll down to the Covenant Calendar and sign up for the emails there. You will also see that you are able to download this calendar for yourself in that same location on the website, where you can print it out and have it handy for you to keep you on track. We are so excited at Torah to the Tribes to see you all at all the feasts and all of the exciting things that are happening this next year. I know that Yahuwah is empowering us with the Ruach HaKodesh, as Matthew is teaching us, and that using the calendar and counting our days is so important, so that we are on his timeline, in sync with him, and on Yahuwah's frequency. And we just pray that you are blessed today with this, these questions and answers. Thank you for joining us. Shalom.
Shalom, shalom.